Check. Good. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like guitar players just realized that triads are the substance of improvisational fluency. In this video, I'm going to show you a practice system that will unlock comprehensive triadic fluency across the fretboard. So if you're a guitarist sick of playing the same 3 licks on every solo, this video is probably going to be the most important video you've seen since my last video. All right, so the first thing you need to identify is the problem, right? So the problem is that you keep focusing on scales, even though I've told you not to in the past 17 videos or so. Now, scales do have their place though, right? But inversely, they're actually for chord construction, okay? They're not for soloing and melodies. They're for constructing chords. Newsflash, the most cutting melodies are nearly always triads that are voice-led to other triads. So if you're an improviser, you're a composer, and you create melodies, you obviously need to understand all 6 triad configurations categorically, and you need to understand how all of those triadic configurations connect to one another, because that is the substance of improvisational fluency. All of your scales will build on top of that, right? So your tetrachords, right? So it's gonna be triads 3s, then it's gonna be your tetrachords 4s, then it's gonna be your pentatonics 5s. You see where the logic. Scales are way up there, right? And the applicability of scales is, like I said, not really in the single note approach here. It's more in the chordal or 3 to 4 note to 5 note structure approach when you're playing voicings of chords on the fretboard. Now, don't confuse chord voicings with voice leading, although that term is connected. But right now, all that matters is you now understand exactly why you need to prioritize triads in your vocabulary development. So then the obvious question is, how do you prioritize triads in your vocabulary development? Well, that's the practice system I told you about that I'm going to teach you in this video. This is going to freaking absolutely crush you dead in the water in terms of the fact that you'll be like, how did I not think of this? Especially because I've actually already talked about it in other videos, but people are still asking me how to do stuff like this. Now, as with all practice systems, the key is a parameter. Now, one of the parameters we always come back to would be jazz standards, right? Because we can play jazz standards in any style. They give us a harmonic sequence to work with, and we know that harmonic sequence is absolutely golden dynamite because it made it into the canon of jazz standards, you know what I mean? So you can take it to the bank that it's iconic. And this is like classical type education stuff. It's right before they had jazz standards, you know, back in the day, students would take a piece of a Bach chorale and just do basic counterpoint over it. So we're kind of doing the same thing with jazz standards. We're taking those ubiquitous forms, those iconic harmonic sequences, and we're applying this practice system that I'm going to show you. So then the question is, which is going to be the harmonic sequence of today's video? Well, if you already saw that thumbnail, you know it's going to be a hard one, and actually the harder the better. Now, why the harder the better when it comes to picking a jazz standard or a harmonic sequence to work with? Well, first of all, what do I mean by hard? Well, I mean it has a shitload of chord changes. That would be hard, right? So one great example of a tune with a shitload of chord changes would be Satellite, the ultimate Coltrane tinfoil hat banger. Satellite is seriously one of my all-time favorites. I think it's probably like the best example of a form that just lifts off like a rocket ship, right? If you just play the changes, if all you do is do this practice system on Satellite where you literally just play triadic voice leading through the form and you only play triads, you will lift off into the intergalactics. So the thing with having a ton of chord changes to deal with is that you literally don't have time to play anything other than triad, right? So once again, the parameters unlocking our creative awareness, right? Because if we just work with the 6 triad configurations through that form, that is chorus after chorus after chorus of endless variation. You could just practice triadic voice leading through satellite probably for an entire year, and it would probably be some of the most valuable, if not the most valuable practice you've ever done in terms of lead vocabulary development. Actually, that is not even exaggeration. And of course, this is just in line with my basic mentality of musical development, which is that you need to go deep on a select number of iconic harmonic sequences. Satellite is probably at the top of that ladder. Like you're not going to get to satellite until you've at first mastered Just the Two of Us, which is short, got still a fair bit of chord changes, but it's short. The harmonic rhythm is slippery. It's a really good one. That's a great starting point. Complex blues, that's the other obvious, inevitable, ubiquitous form you got to check, right? From there we go rhythm changes, right? We're talking about the step-by-step mastery system, right? Just mastering your triad. This practice system I'm going to show you, mastering that on Just the Two of Us, blues, rhythm changes, falling grace, okay? Falling grace. If you know, you know, right? Blue and green. That's the 5, okay? After that, you get to go to Coltrane land, right? You're probably going to start with giant steps, but you could start with satellite. And actually in this video, I'm going to show you why you could technically, if you already been playing chord changes, you already understand chord changes, and you just haven't really practiced your triads, you could technically start with satellite right away. Honestly, no, as I'm saying that, I realize, no, I'm oversimplifying. You actually couldn't do that. That would be horrific. Like, it would just be too masochistic, right? You might as well make it easy on yourself and be more efficient about the whole process. Start with that simple tune, right? Just the Two of Us. That's that first tune to start with. That's really, really simple. Master every level of that tune. Every single level, right? So that's the 6 triad configurations, voice leading through that form, adding all the rhythmic variation, and then also the whole chord mastery system. Got to do both, right? That's what we're going to do on satellite in this video. Get ready to understand Coltrane changes. Here's how you drill it down, okay? So first thing is to get that harmonic rhythm in your ear, right? So a tune like this, I'm going to use the old classic root position parallel practice, right? You know the old root position parallel triads? Classic, right? We'll start with the old, maybe save that for later, right? That's the easiest one, right? And what it does is it gets you in your ear, right? So that's actually a legit practice to simply just start, but now instantly you already see what you can do, right? We've already talked about voice leading. The moment you voice lead, well, guess what? A whole new world opens up to you. So let's just see what's convenient. You know, how do I feel today? Well, you know, I went rock climbing earlier. I'll tell you, man, my wrists are tireder than hell, brother. So I'm going to play some ones that are easy because I'm a bit tired, right? So check this out, right? So I'll start with the old open because I like that. The old root position open, right? And you see those chord changes, right? So I'm going root position open. I like that. It just fits real nice under my fingers. The third of root position open, G major, is going to the root of B flat, which is going to be now a closed first inversion. And you hear it. You hear the instant Coltrane Cosmos merge, right? Where's that D pull you to? This is the voice leading principle. It pulls. There's only one place it actually pulls to. And guess what? It's right here. Yep. Hear it? That B flat first inversion closed is going to a root position closed E flat major. I'm just following. Look at all these pivots, all these voice leadings, right? The common tone acknowledgement, never moving more than a half step in this little pathway. This is perfect. Now, what's this next chord? F sharp 7, but it's a major triad, so it's a 5 of. This one's another secondary dominant in the Coltrane system, but I'm just going to play that F sharp triad. So it's like that G from the E flat goes to the F sharp, right? And that B flat stays the same. And then I flipped it up higher, right? With the 5th of that F sharp up top here, right? You hear that crystal clear, right? So I'm enclosing the root of B natural, the key we're going to, right? Bang. Now it's like, do I go down or up? Do I go down or up? I'm trying to stay comfortable. I'm going down here. That's what I'm feeling, right? Hear what I got? Ooh, a repeating pattern. that? Now we're not done. We're not done. You see it. Where is it? Hear that? These are the fundamental connections of the universe. What does root position D go to? Well, it's going to go to first inversion G, closed. So we got, right? So look at that whole pathway through that first sequence. Now you're hearing the COLTRANE systems simply because you're putting them under your fingers. And you could create these building block sequences all you want. You can use your own triads. You know what I mean? If I start here, right, first inversion open G, a whole other situation emerges, right? Like, right, alternate pathway, but we'll stick to that original pathway. This one's classic, right? You really get to hear that voice leading with these closed triads here, right? Start with that open, then it just wants to stay closed for me today. Now I've got that in my ear under my fingers. I know this harmonic rhythm because I did this first. I went. That's in my ear, so now I can play those closed position voice leading connections that I established just a second ago, really simply taking the time to think about them, really easy. I'll play them like 3, 4. See? Just the rhythmic implication, right? Looking to slam into that voice leading, right? Right, those kinds of things. Triads just slicing and dicing each other in that COLTRANE system, right? Now I'm starting to feel a bit warmed up, you know, maybe now I'll start to think of that open pathway I just did a second ago. And start to open it up on purpose. Right? And then, right? Still voice leading here. Right? Just taking different pathways. The moment I add rhythm, and honestly, there you have it. I've given you everything, really. Now, I've encoded it in satellite, but I've told you the 5 tunes you need to check out to get to the point where you can just bust those triads and open up your entire creative sensibility. Like, start channeling those first principles, you know what I mean? And that's what that is, right? You just got to start to stack those first principles on top of one another. Obviously, a lot of it's already been explored, right? And we can kind of go where others have gone before and just kind of look at those techniques. For example, triadic voicing through COLTRANE systems. Obviously, that's going to teach you a ton about musicality and melody and all those first principles of music. Like I said, if you literally just dedicated a year of your practice to just playing triadic voice leading through satellite, that would be life-changing. And I would say that to build up to that, you would have to do, you know, some work with some other forms, but it would be a pretty quick process to really get a deep melodic sensibility by just kind of combining these basic principles. Always leveraging harmonic rhythm, always leveraging voice leading, and I would say those things are superseding, you know, cycle of fourths, functional harmony. You know, you don't have to necessarily think about harmony in terms of cycle of fourths all the time, right? We see these deviations. The COLTRANE system is a classic deviation. It uses the cycle of fourths, but it has that classic deviation, that iconic, right? So it's up a minor third, up a fourth. That's that sound, and then you voice lead it. Right? Now it's starting to get that Bach crossover, you know? At the end of the day, if you want to get deep, you have to think about using those forms, and you have to leverage those forms that have come before you. Get those complex forms under your fingers, in your mind, in your ear. It informs you on every level, right? It informs the way you build out your improvisational language, but it also informs the way that you're going to compose, right? You're going to look how things have been done before. Look how those rules have been bent. Look at those cycle of fourths deviations. If you want to unlock comprehensive musical fluency, you know the deal, right? It's easy to find that through my programs, through my school, Systems for Creation.